more light on them. I mean, we have some of them that are actually like, maybe I can take one or two. Are you guys ready for that? Or maybe we start this session proper.
Either way,
While
whichever.
she's figuring out the streaming, why don't we take questions?
Yeah, quite a few questions. Okay. There's this one that is at the top of the list. Somebody asked John Onyekachukwu, yeah, Nigerian. So how easily can one secure a job as a cloud architect or like a cloud engineer? So I think it's more like what are the chances of getting a job if you're certified as a cloud architect or an engineer? Anybody want to take that?
I can.
Okay.
Go for it.
Guys, I'm at a distributor for cloud in Africa. DigiCloud Africa is a distributor. We enable Google partners. So we've got a network of partners who then, when it's time, when the client is ready to do something on the cloud, the partners are the ones who actually do the work on the ground. And
So I think
yes, we manage that network. These guys have a shortage of skills on the ground. There's definitely a need for engineers. It's difficult for them. One of the things we rate our partners on is how many certifications their engineers have. They are not finding those people. And we get a situation where, in order to increase the number of certifications on their own dashboard, they go and have to poach engineers from other partners, which is, not the ideal situation. The ideal situation is there's more than enough. So the jobs are there. One interesting statistic that is out there is that the Google Cloud Architect certification that we are going to be talking about today is easily one of the highest paid certifications in the world. People with this certification in the States, I think they earn in excess of $200,000 per year. I think the number was 250,000, but to be safe, I'm just saying it's more than 200,000 US dollars per annum. So there's a lot of value in it. But here in Africa, there's this journey that needs to be walked to unlocking that value. And the first step is more people with these certifications. With these certifications in play, the partners can stop cannibalizing each other's engineers, pick up young guys like yourselves, and service the industry.
I think if I can just add in there in terms of the technical competency and just kind of get in on that road. And I think what's really beautiful with the way these certifications are structured and along the journey to becoming Google certified is they've packed a lot into understanding practical experience, understanding relevant on-the-job training. The journey to certs is really based on how you engage, how you do day-to-day things in your jobs, and not based on a lot of academic content and traditional stuff that kind of create quite a big bridge between traditional university-driven content and all of that. And I think if you look at a lot of the training courses, a lot of the learnerships and internships and initiatives that have come out, it's saying that within 3 to 6 months of really embarking a bit of a deeper engagement journey with getting certified, doing the coursework, doing the training, it's kind of positioning you quite well to land into a really, really technical environment using things like cloud, using things like data, using things like AI. I think it's very exciting to empower people in that way because, practically speaking, it's really applying a lot of the skills and the tools that you're using every single day into an environment that is just extremely scalable, extremely usable in everyday way. I think it really bridges or kind of creates a bit of a landing pad coming out of a very academic environment, coming out of research environments to get practical, to get into the enterprise world, start using tools that make a difference in big organizations. Just to complement what Sizwe was saying.
Yeah, awesome. So definitely, like you've heard it, guys, and you can tell, the certifications kind of give you a more fine-grained, focused path, Of course, you're gonna have a lot of hands-on experience. It's more hands-on than most. Like Prin was trying to explain, it's not necessarily most. Some of the certifications are not purely theoretical in nature. They reward hands-on experience. And Sizwe also mentioned as well that there's the jobs are there, and we just need the competencies, and the certifications kind of help ground that understanding. All right, I think we can take one more before we start the session proper. There was a question that just came in. Maybe I can just take the first then. He said, that's Abba Jibril. Does one need backend skills before going fully into cloud? I think it's more of a general question.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say there's some foundational skills in the technical world that I think is good to refine and build on. I think the cloud is definitely open to learners from all skill sets, but I think a good area is being familiar with your general, depending on which vertical of cloud you're sort of looking at. Like I mentioned, if you're the data world of cloud, it's being familiar with basics of databasing, the basics of approaching a machine learning environment, the basics of infrastructure, of servers, if you're from a more infrastructure level side. But I think the beauty of cloud is really building on a foundational understanding, foundational technical understanding, but really drilling deeper into those verticals and saying what's practically relevant to actually solve industry problems. How do we apply a lot of these scalable tool sets in such a way that we can layer on a very basic foundational understanding, gear you up on a bit of a roadmap, and get you towards being fully certified to work in big enterprises, work in scalable startups, solving problems on a more dynamic scale.
I mean, if I understand correctly, you're saying maybe you're a front end developer. Do you need to know back end development in order to do this? And for me, the gap that cloud filled was allowing me as a developer. Now I'm talking as a developer. I was working as a developer for 17 years, more of a full stack developer. I touched every part of the code. But the gap that cloud engineering filled for me was that I didn't go and have to talk to anybody in order to get my infrastructure up. I could go and set that up with some basic understanding. And in fact, I think some people think of the cloud as I'm bringing up a virtual machine. But there's the even more interesting stuff where you are just bringing up a managed service where you just deploy your code. That's all you have to worry about. You just throw your code in there with a couple of configs, and it's up and running and available to the world, for that matter, in a matter of minutes. So that is where the cloud for me closes a loop. Whether you're a front-end developer or a back-end developer, the loop is closed in that you are empowered to do things without having to involve third parties for the infrastructure. Oh, it's running over here, it's running. You decide where it's running, and very quickly you're up and running with your code.
I think it definitely speaks to that, do what you do best as a job role, right? So if you're a data scientist, focus on data science, not on massive big end clusters that's required to power that. As a cloud architect, focus on building the high performance architectures and not nitty gritty VMs and configuring networks and configuring security and all of those aspects. So it really lets you empower yourselves to be the best in your job role and not worry about the peripheral aspects that make it difficult.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure, as our session speakers kind of touch on details of some of the certifications available out there for Google Cloud, you would see that most of them are focused for certain aspects. So like Prin was saying, if you're somebody maybe they just graduate from some sort of computer science program, maybe you focus on like data science. There's a path and there's a whole Google Cloud certification geared towards data science. So that's a big win. Okay, so Eunice,
yeah.
Are you ready for us?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Okay, great. So we are live already. So that's just to let Sizwe know. So thank you and welcome to the Google Next on Air extended for cloud. So basically, Cloud Next on Air has been running from 14th of July 2020 and will be running running all the way through to 8th of September. And so for this particular session, we decided to bring an African, should I say, an African vibe to it, and just get developers from across to just speak about what it is like to be Google certified for cloud, and what are some of the things that you need to consider. So the session, this is going to run for the next 4 weeks. So today's session is basically just focusing on certification. And if you have questions, Mfawa has posted a link. So my name is Alela Yunis. I work as a community manager at Google for Sub-Saharan Africa with a focus on the Developer Experts program. And I am really excited to learn about cloud, because I am also curious about if this is something I should venture into. And looking forward to hearing. It's a yes, right? Yeah. So just looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say, or what Sizwe and Prin and Mfawa have prepared for us. Just a few ground rules. When you join the call, kindly just turn off your video and your audio to save on bandwidth for everybody else, unless necessary. Then also we will take just a quick, should I call it a selfie or a screenshot at the end of the session? Yeah. Over to you, Mfawa.
All right. Thank you, Eunice. Yeah. All right. So let's see. I would basically just start by saying hello and welcome to this Google Extended session on GCP certifications. You've been hearing Eunice call my name, Mfawa. So my full name is Mfawa Alfred Onen, also known as Murphy. So today, basically, I will be, moderating the session, just trying to kind of allow you, connect with the, experts in the field. As you can tell, you've gotten a sneak peek from the two of them. With all the excitement around Google Cloud certifications from the, like Eunice said, the ongoing Google Cloud Next on Air 2020 events, everybody's already thinking about getting certified. Of course, our objective today is to answer some of the questions around, Google Cloud certifications and what paths to consider, what to expect in your journey towards being certified, basically. So, yeah, we are lucky to have two renowned experts that will be taking, just talking about their experiences and why, or different certification paths on why you need to be certified. I will introduce, the first session speaker. His name is Sizwe Mabanga. He's a Google Cloud architect. So, you've heard him talk about why the cloud architect certification, is, those that work as cloud architect are paid, the highest box. So, Sizwe, I'll let you go detailed in that. But he works at DigiCloud Africa, and that's one of Africa's leading cloud enablement partner for Google Cloud. He can tell you more on that. Next speaker we have is Prinavan Pillay. Prinavan Pillay.
Prin is good.
Prin is good. We all want that short name, actually. He's a Google developer expert for cloud, and he's a co-founder and technical director at TerraFlow AI. Of course, they are the leading artificial intelligence company. They are focused on using AI to transform your data, for businesses and all. So, of course, we're not going to take too much time, just talking about other stuff. I'll just let us jump right into the session. Sizwe, do you want to go ahead and start?
Okay. Actually, we had it the other way around. We had Prin going first. We thought he would field this introduce himself and field this question.
Yeah,
and then
Prin,
I would introduce myself and
field
the following question.
We could swap it. That's fine.
Perfect.
All right.
Either way. Awesome. Nice to meet everyone. Good to see lots of faces wanting to learn about cloud. It's as Sizwe put it, an amazing market, an amazing time, both in the economy, in terms of what's happening around the world. I think things are just exploding. So I think someone's call is on.
I have muted them.
If we can meet. Awesome. Sorry about that. I'm getting direct feedback. Yeah, so I think just one thing to touch on is just how this market is exploding at this point in time. I mean, I think the last few months around the world has just been this massive wake-up call to really empower innovative thinking, empowering new ways of doing things. And I think that's where the cloud has been just amazingly suited towards how do we get action fast, in many ways, as technical, as techies, as developers, how do we get something out there? The startup community is exploding, enterprise is exploding. There's this new kind of job roles that have just started developing across industry around AI, around development microservices, around innovative ways of thinking. And what it's meant is being able to just keep up with rapidly changing things all the time. So are we going into the first question yet, or because I see it's just okay, cool, yeah. So I mean, touching into like what it actually means to be certified hinges on this ability to actually really keep up with this growth in demand. People are trying to really do more with less, and there's this thing of how do I stay relevant from a skill set perspective. And as we touched on earlier from Sizwe's points, it's how do I get things done with so much less? As a developer, how do I really how do I focus on development and not this legacy infrastructure that's required to maintain, host, serve, all these irrelevant components when, as a developer, you want to take your code, you want to drop it into a platform as a service environment, host it, and let it scale. As a data scientist, it becomes, how can I focus on my statistical models? How can I take data? How can I unlock the most potential from that data and host something somewhere where I'm not worried about the scalability of it? Is it going to maintain 2,000-3,000 people today and scale to 2 million people overnight? Those elements of scalability shouldn't be the aspects that people are worrying about, but rather how can I focus on getting the best out of what I'm building and what I'm doing? And from the startup side, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we've seen a lot of dynamic ideas. I mean, I've spent a lot of time mentoring with the African startup programs, and there's such exciting ideas that's being built grassroots out of a lot of initiatives. And African problems are very unique to solve, and it needs a unique approach that a lot of the world doesn't understand. And it becomes, how can I get these ideas into a platform and environment where I'm not worried about this kind of barrier of adoption. I'm not worried about this barrier of scalability, and I can focus on really bringing the best potential out of them. I think secondly, also when it talks about being certified, it's really bridging a bit of the gaps that we see both in industry and academia. I think understanding practically what we do in a cloud-based environment requires a lot of skills that traditional training or traditional academia doesn't cover. I mean, a lot of it's focused on the algorithmic design, the back-end designs, but it doesn't come with this practical experience of how to deploy, how to scale, how to implement. And I think for me, the certification really bridges that gap by saying this is depending on how fast you can learn, but this is really a 6 to 12 month journey of catalyzing that route to becoming useful to industry. And as Sizwe highlighted, really one of the top paying jobs right now in the world are certified cloud specialists. I mean, across all the domains. I mean, we're seeing it in the world of infrastructure, guys that are specializing in things like infrastructure as a service, being able to deploy these robust, dynamic cloud-based infrastructure environments, changing that legacy thinking towards a cloud-native environment where a lot of the stuff is managed for you. In the data world, it's about really building the best AI services possible without a lot of the traditional elements that slow down the ability to train, the ability to scale, the ability to deploy large-scale models. In the DevOps world and container world, it's about how we're breaking down traditional infrastructure into microservices, into DevOps approaches. So, yeah, for me, I mean, in a nutshell, it's just really how to cope with this evolving market. How do we cope with the increased demand in skills, the increased demand in compute? How do we package that and actually solve problems with it?
All right, that's really great, for sure. Sizwe, you want to touch on this as well?
Yeah, no, actually, I was gonna.
You're on mute, Sizwe.
Oh, okay, you're muted, Sizwe.
Yeah. I was actually gonna handle the next question because I think he's really covered what it does mean to be certified.
Yeah, I agree, because the next question actually, kind of leans towards this one anyway. So that's good. The next slide would show. Okay, yep. So why?
All right.
This is a big question.
No, gentlemen, for me, I feel I'm talking to engineers, and engineers want to get stuff done. The reason you get certified as an engineer seems obvious to me, because that's the same reason we've been doing degrees and honors and masters in other streams, because there's this baseline of information that you definitely need to know before you can go fast. And as engineers in Africa, that's what we need to do. We need to go really, really fast. We need to try things, because so many ideas have failed, but they've taken too long to fail. And we're sitting here with things that have failed and hopelessness. We've got to change our attitude to one of things will fail, but we must be able to try things as fast as things are failing. Because when they do succeed and when they do come right, that's what we need. But we won't get there if we invest these huge amounts of time in this one project. We've got to go fast. We've got to try things. And that's why these certifications give you the basic building blocks for going fast. They set up the guardrails, rather, even, that allow you to know, okay, this is how security is done. This is how access control is done, and permissions are granted. And this is how I know where to host what, because this is the region that I'm servicing. And once all of those building blocks are in play, because you've gone and done the certification, then you can start to go really, really fast. You can bring up projects and figure out whether they work for you and your client within the space of a couple of weeks. I mean, we all know that there's all of these IT projects that it's only 6 months later that you figure out this isn't exactly what was needed. That's what we're trying to solve for with cloud. This is where you are enabled. We want you to know within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whether this is going to work, whether this solves for the business ask. So these certifications speak directly to the information that you need to know in order to get up and running fast and service whatever your client is, whether it's the company that you work for, or whether you're an entrepreneurial developer who's working with other entrepreneurs. The big idea is speed, but you can't go fast until you've gone slow, So, and that's where the certifications take you step by step. The certifications often want you to do labs, and Quick Labs is an amazing platform made available to you by Google with regards to this, where you get to try things yourself on the cloud, on Google's cloud. It actually, if the exercise in the lab is to bring up a Kubernetes cluster, you will in that lab bring up a Kubernetes cluster, and step by step, so that you understand what you're doing and you're getting practical experience in real time, so that when the time comes for you to go fast with the client, you're not learning at that point. That's where things go wrong, when you're learning at the client. Yes, QuickLab is really amazing. I see people are commenting, I rely on it for just about everything. When I have a project that I'm about to start, I'm off to QuickLabs. Yeah, this is how it's done. Oh, okay. And by the time I'm talking to the client thinks I'm some sort of savant genius, but actually, I just went on to QuickLabs and have done the certifications in question.
All right, that's amazing. A lot of people are already asking questions. So maybe before we move on, we might take two, just kind of engage with the audience and see, to make sure, they're following up as well. We have one. I think this is mostly, in line with the first question that Prin kind of took on. So, okay, this is a question from Gebi Muller. He said, what is the certification part for Google like? So probably, if it's something you want to cover later, it's fine. We can answer the question after that. But again, usually
I can jump in very lightly.
Go ahead.
If it was, I think we are going to cover the actual certification journey from a training perspective, what courses you have to follow. But I think really the easiest is looking at a combination of learning and understanding coursework combined with practical experience. And that's the real thing with GCP. It's getting into it, it's playing around, it's doing things, it's doing the labs, it's building your own little products, because these really are professional roles are tailored towards being on the job, so it's not one of these theoretical roles. It's really getting your kind of fingers dirty with code. It's actually building something, it's deploying something. That's probably the most valuable advice you can give someone, is to actually start engaging with the platform. And going back to the coursework, I mean, the courseworks are great. They're good. Slides really get you so far before you actually just need to sit down and try something out. But we will get to the coursework, and we'll get to sort of the formal learning path in one of the consecutive slides.
All right. So this is a more of a, I guess, a question for the session speakers. I guess it's more, it's one of those questions where, like the answer sounds obvious, but it's a good question. So a question from Efyong Atai, he says, is there a path for non-engineers, non-developers, basically?
Yes. Developers actually turn out to be a relatively small part of the cloud world. If you look at it, I feel like the data analysis side is going to very much overshadow the developer side of things, especially since a lot of the problems in the world of development are solved for. There's frameworks that can easily put developers out of jobs, but the data analysis, mining insights, understanding what the data is telling you is this whole new world that business is definitely more interested in, because business, when they make decisions, need more information than they have today. And we've been collecting data as IT, we keep logs of everything that's happening, but the art of mining that for insights to say, guys, we are now realizing that, for instance, all of our deliveries to Kenya from South Africa are delayed by a factor of whatever. What can we do about that? That was an insight that came from the data. And that is the most valuable thing to business at the moment. And then there's all these other parts to it, where infrastructure as an enterprise exercise, making sure that the enterprise has all of the resources that it needs to run its IT infrastructure. That's a whole job unto itself that you don't do any development. Mostly you're working with configurations, you're setting up clusters that can scale horizontally and vertically depending on the need and all of that type of stuff. That's a whole set of understanding that doesn't require development knowledge or programming skills.
All right. Well said, actually, because I know that question has been looming. Usually when you have starters, the first thing that comes to mind is, so I must be a developer before I can even approach cloud. But I think this has actually given, like an in-depth answer.
I think the last thing as well, okay. Sorry, just to touch on is, there's even for completely non-technical people, there's still expertise streams on the side of enterprise collaboration. When you look at things like G Suite, when you look at the entire productivity environment, which has been more effective with regards to just like having this hangout, having a Google Meet and being able to collaborate with lots of people, being able to share documents, being able to become more effective in an organization. People that are not even tech focused can really get to grips with the cloud and understand, as an organization, how can I become more productive and make use of cloud in that way. So it's just another aspect of it.
Yeah. All right. So maybe we'll move the Jibrin, can you hear us? Okay.
Did Jibrin want to ask a question?
Yeah, I was trying to be sure, but he hasn't said it. Anyway, so this is we're gonna touch on this quite a bit. We're gonna let our session speakers just kind of talk you through their journey towards being like their certifications, and if there are tips and tricks.
Awesome. I think the easiest way is just to bring up the next slide and we can talk over that one, because I think that really
Okay.
speaks to sort of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the journey that we're trying to approach.
All right. So next slide. Okay. Yeah.
Wait,
I
which
think
particular thing are you referring to?
yeah, we're referring to the
Oh, so,
infographics that has all the different
Oh, okay,
yeah.
great.
That's
cool.
good.
All right.
I don't know if everyone can see, but this is quite a nice slide to talk through the different verticals, and we can kind of really speak to the journey and the certification along each of it. So I think a nice way is to start and just understand sort of the different pillars of cloud and what are the different real kind of areas that that Google focuses on when you look at cloud. And if you look at the top, you've got the infrastructure side, you've got the application side, you've got the data analytics side, and then, as I was mentioning, you've got the productivity and collaboration. So I think these were really the different areas that Sizwe was touching on when you mentioned, the cloud is so diverse. There's so many different things you can do. And if we start all the way on the left and you just look at infrastructure modernization, the cloud really gives you that ability to apply for people that are very traditional IT roles, guys that come from a world of building servers, that come from a world of networking. It's really saying what is the route that I can actually engage in to productionize some of these systems that I've built traditionally, but do it in the cloud? How can I spin up VMs? How can I actually build a network, build a cluster? How can I set up security, but do it in a way that's more scalable, in a way that brings more value and just saves you time? As we kept hearing, fail forward fast. That's the message: is if we don't fail, we never learn. So we actually need to be in an environment where we can innovate as quickly as possible. So if you look at the infrastructure stream specifically, there's different certs tailored towards wherever you are in your journey. On the far left, you've got a path towards something called the associate cloud engineer. And I mean, this is just for really people that actually don't have any experience working with cloud at all. They don't understand. They haven't really been exposed to much of the tools, much of the environments, a very limited background, technical background. And what's nice about the associate, doesn't get deep into the nitty-gritty build, but provides you a good architectural view of what the cloud's about, what are the different subsystems, what are the different components. And as you'll see, each of the little blips along the journey are different courseworks, labs, quests that you guys can do from Coursera, that you can do from quick labs in the different environments. So each of the little learning path blocks are actually different formal training steps that you can take towards building towards the actual certification. So if you look at all the way on the left, it's getting through a lot of the foundational elements of what's an associate cloud engineer. So you guys can Google this on the certification website. It obviously expands on each of the different modules, but it's basics. It's looking at things like how do we architect in compute engine. Compute engine being just literally deploying servers in the cloud. Specify my VM, spin it up, deploy it, get it up out there. Then moving on to things like some of the essentials. Look at some of the overall engineering architectures. And what's nice about each of these parts is there's preparation course to look at the end, which actually helps you with the requirements to sit the exam. So, for example, preparing for the associate engineer is actually now saying what types of questions, what types of case studies, what types of things will I be given, and then finally you actually take the exam. And what's nice with most of these now, I know over COVID, Google's actually made all of the most of the exams actually takeable from home, so you can actually subscribe, book your exam, and take it from home. So then, moving us sort of along that journey as well, there's roles that now become more specialized, which is the professional roles. So typically once you have an associate level, look, you don't need an associate to take a professional, but usually it's a good foundation. But moving on, that's specifically the job roles that are suited towards industry or suited towards your specific area of expertise. So if you take, for example, professional cloud architects, it's now designing enterprise cloud systems from an infrastructure level. So understanding how do we do the things we've traditionally done on-prem? How do we do that in the cloud? How do we put servers up there? How do we connect networks together? How do we bridge hybrid environments? If you guys have heard, hybrid cloud has become the topic of the century with regards to how do we build this ecosystem that's tightly coupled between doing things in a new way and doing things in an old way. And getting towards that cloud architecture and professional cloud architect really gets you on that path. Obviously, very tightly coupled to cloud architecture is really professional network engineers and security engineers. Because when you look at designing a robust enterprise environment, it's about, yes, we can architect things well, but are we still secure? Are we still is the environment still built in a best practice way that aligns with how we've done things traditionally, or within the frameworks that we've done things traditionally. And in many ways, there's a bit of a paradigm shift towards understanding things like software-defined networks, to understanding things like load balancers in the cloud, understanding things like edge caching, and all of those aspects that changes the way we think. And from a network and security perspective, it's meeting requirements that were always there, but doing it sort of in a new way, if I can call it that. Then the last aspect on the infrastructure side is getting in the world of DevOps. And DevOps and microservices is an extremely exciting space, because this is really taking things to the next level beyond infrastructure as a service. Right now, a lot of the world sits at a point where we understand infrastructure in the cloud, which is literally VMs in the cloud. But when you take sort of a step further, it's now saying, how can I break up these very traditional monolithic systems into microservices? How to become more agile, where a lot of the traditional workflows are now done in agile CI/CD environments, where it's click to deploy, it's data pipelines, it's Kubernetes pipelines that are really, really bringing value from decomposing all these monolithic approaches into smaller container-based approaches, if you want to call it. So for the guys that are big into using Docker, that have started with containerizing traditional systems, how do we now do it in a more scalable way using orchestration tools like Kubernetes? How do I run Kubernetes in the cloud? How do I build these orchestration layers around my infrastructure? The professional DevOps really touches into that certification. So beyond all of that, those sort of group up into really the infrastructure stream. Then in the middle, we've got the application modernization. And a lot of this really touches on, how do I develop applications in a really, really scalable way? How do I utilize things like platform as a service? How do I utilize true microservice-based approaches when it comes to developing apps? And what this means is empowering developers with the ability to focus on their core dev environments, focus on their sandboxes, and drag and drop code into a fully scalable backend. So not letting developers touch the left-hand side of this picture, which is infrastructure. I mean, most developers don't want to be managing complex virtual machine setups. They want to manage complex backends. And what application modernization does is saying, how can you sort of equip a developer with this highly scalable tool set to drag and drop, scale, become fully platform as a service, and really get the most out of deploying web, mobile, whatever it is, basically in the cloud. Then looking at the sort of the last layer, or the last two layers, one is smart analytics and data management. This is an area that really, really excites me. I come from a very AI-focused area of cloud. A lot of the roles I do on a daily basis is around AI. And I mean, AI is just exploding in every possible way. When you look at the growth of machine learning, when you look at the growth of big data analytics, getting more from this massive amount of data in all these organizations, whether it's enterprise, whether it's startups, I mean, the verticals are endless when it comes to where we can unlock that value from data. And this path is really becoming, how do I become a professional data engineer? There's actually a new certification, which is a professional machine learning engineer as well. But I mean, the message is really the same of, how do I orchestrate, manage, and centralize data in such a way that it's usable. And it's an interesting cert, because a lot of data scientists and machine learning engineers tend to be very focused on the model building aspects of data science. They focused on the analysis part of it. And where the big gap in industry sits at this point is the orchestration, or the pipelining of data is actually 99% of the work when it comes to unlocking value from data. And what's really nice with the certification is it focuses actually most of the time on data engineering, which is now, how do I build robust pipelines? How do I build orchestration frameworks? How do I move the data in such a way that it's not siloed? I mean, many of us that work in traditional roles will know that data sits across tons of different silos, whether it's ERP systems, SAP systems, SQL Server, whatever it is, every legacy jargon you can think of. But before data is actually usable, it's, how do I plug in, ingest, transform, centralize this into big data environments, things like BigQuery, things like Hadoop, all these big centralized environments, unlock value from that, build smart models, and lastly, deploy scalable models that can plug back into your front ends, into those environments. And yeah, I mean, lastly, just to touch on, there's also another cert that's driven towards professional collaboration engineers. And these are really looking at the ecosystem of G Suite and how that's improved productivity in many organizations from a point of centralizing documentation that everyone can collaborate on, doing slides that's freely editable without needing local copies saved on people's hard drives. I'm sure Sizwe could talk a lot more to the benefits of collaboration, but
I
mean, it's just this whole ecosystem.
Who sends me an email attachment of a document, I'll stab them.
Definitely.
I mean, digitally, of course.
But yeah, I mean that's really it's just an overview of all the different roles. But each of these different points is really saying, what do I need from a theoretical coursework perspective? If you want to drill it down to steps I can take, but like I mentioned, in tandem with going out there and actually building stuff for yourself. So as you do a lab, see if you can do that on your own without necessarily just following the lab step by step. Can I build my own little application, deploy it? If you want to be an infrastructure engineer, can I actually build a load balanced computer engine environment and serve it? So kind of striking that balance between coursework and actually practical experience. But this would sort of be a lot of the cert journey or the cert roadmap for each of the different streams. I don't know if other guys want to add more to, or any other things I missed out on this, Sizwe and Mfawa.
Yeah, look, if I want to add a little to this, and I really love this diagram over here because it really does give you that lovely overview. And if you are a newbie and you want to start this journey and you're committed to this journey, we obviously recommend that you start at Associate Cloud Engineer. That's your foot in the door type of everything else becomes more easier to understand once you have your Associate Cloud Engineer. And then assuming you're not really sure where you want to go in which stream you want to specialize in of those available over here, then the most obvious next one for me is the professional cloud architect, because now what you're getting there is you're going more in depth into the overview. So you can be taken into any room where a potential client needs to, sort of take their own cloud journey, and you will be able to give them advice on the first steps on how they can do their cloud journey. You'll look at their existing infrastructure and be able to see how that maps to the cloud. So that's where professional cloud architect is a very powerful certification. And what's recommended to be followed on quickly after that is the cloud security engineer, because security is always a concern. The moment you're building anything that's going to live in the internet, you know that there's somebody out there, most likely in Russia, who has a way of getting at your server and compromising it. So security is something that we believe everybody should understand, and whether you're a data engineer and all of that type of stuff, I would actually recommend that the cloud security engineer is always on everybody's list of certifications. Then there's what then you can start specializing. I think once you have those three, then specialization becomes and I must tell you guys, I went and wrote the professional cloud developer one. That was around, was it early January or December? Around there. And I failed. So what I want to impress on you and with that is that these things are hard. And Google makes sure that these things are hard because Google has vested in interests in making sure that the people who are advising its clients are very, very well versed and have gone in depth and are not just talking out of an article that they read. So these things are hard. I've been a developer for 17 years, and yet I still went and failed. So you do need to approach them with the understanding that it is going to be hard, You do have to go through the coursework. You do have to, no matter how smart you actually are, there's a lot of smart people who will get caught out by these exams if they think that they can just, wing it. And my other favorite that I am going to be writing relatively soon is the cloud DevOps engineer. Because I think the cloud DevOps engineer one is the one that speaks to how we need to go fast. DevOps is the way of working in the IT world that has put a focus on learning how to fail as a team. Because learning how to fail and then taking that lesson from that failure instead of, we failed, what now? Taking that lesson, incorporating it into your next solution is the way to go. And cloud DevOps processes enable that. They allow you to inline your failures or and your lessons and continuously improve, try again, improve, and the likes. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add to that.
Yeah. And for those wondering, in the slide, you see that my title is DevOps Engineer. Sizwe has basically told you what I do. So that's the life. You have to make sure you, like you said, you are working in a way that, you're taking whatever you're learning, you're reiterating and making sure that, you're improving on those areas that made you fail in the first place. Sometimes it involves, the way you architect, the way you think about whatever solution you have in place. Sometimes you may have to toss whatever you think you know and just kind of go back to the drawing board. And like you said, when you fail, it's not a sign that you've lost. It's just a sign that says you are doing something already and probably you need to find another way to do it, right? Okay. And I know some of us, because I've seen a lot of questions and some of them kind of have a theme to it. And I can tell that some of us are, developers, at heart, and we're used to building, the single applications that we just have a client that just deploys it on a single, probably hosted solution and, forget about it. But then again, you're missing out on cloud itself, because then it allows you to have this ideal of infinite scale and hence empowering you with the ability to scale whenever you need to, and you don't have to worry about, now we have to change the code to handle a lot more people because there's more interest in the system. So just sort of an addendum to what Prin said, and of course Sizwe mentioned.
I think just to add to exactly what you're saying, I think why it's so important, I really think a DevOps way of thinking needs to be ingrained into almost everything that we do. If you look at the way DevOps lets us continuously improve, continuously integrate, continuously deploy. In the world of ML is gravitating towards this. If you guys have heard ML Ops, which is similar to DevOps, which means how do you deploy machine learning models in such a way that you're actually using DevOps principles? How do you, in the world of infrastructure, there's something called infrastructure as code, or infrastructure ops, which means how can I now release and deploy scriptable infrastructure in such a way that it's easily testable, easily deployed, and easily rolled back without these very tight legacy components behind how I provision stuff. And I think it's such a crucial thing that both gentlemen have brought up, to say we got to think as DevOps engineers in a lot of the things we do.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so also I want to touch on this. Probably we can take about 3 questions before we move on. But then again, one of the questions, this is not necessarily specific to, the cloud certification, is just how they can get access to the slides. Eunice, what do we have planned for that? I already mentioned we'll share the link.
Okay, so since most of the slides are basically just questions, the one that people really wanted was the one that Prin was discussing about the various parts that people can take when it comes to Google Cloud. So I just tweeted about it and to get a clear one, so we don't have to share the whole thing. So you can either get it on Twitter, or if Prin would not mind pasting somewhere that they can get, then yeah.
Not a problem. I think it's in a private deck, so I don't think the deck will be able to be shareable. But what I can do is I'll send it to Eunice, and then you can.
We have it on Slack. We have it on Slack already.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. As I said, we have it on Slack.
Yeah.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Cool.
Isaiah.
Yeah.
Great. So you can get it on Slack or on Twitter, either.
All right. So, and then a question just came in, which is kind of interesting. I'll just throw that out first. Somebody just asked, to be a master of cloud, do they have to do all the certifications? So first of all, I think we need to understand what master of cloud is. And then if there's a need to do all the certifications.
It's an interesting question, doing cloud on God mode. But I think, in my opinion, I think sometimes I think it's good to be exposed to different areas that can help the job role. I think there's also, when it comes to over specializing in terms of certifications, for the need of certifications versus actually adding relevance to the type of job or the type of problem you're trying to solve. So, I mean, while it is really great that someone can go about and certifying across the board, but I think it's really hinged on where do you see yourself focusing on as a career, because all of these are professional certs in their own capacity. They should empower you enough in a specific role. I think certain ones are grouped together. So if you look at cloud architect, network, and security work well together. Those are good ones to do as a combo and can suit a specific role in infrastructure. If you look at cloud DevOps and cloud professional developers, those two sort of work very well together. The one that's not shown here is ML engineer, but ML engineer and data engineer sort of work well together. So unless you're really trying to be a full stack guru across the board, but these are actually, and to Sizwe's point, these are not easy certifications. So when you do approach these, they require a certain level of expertise and domain knowledge of each of the different verticals. So really passing and getting through the data engineer exam requires a certain level of understanding of enterprise big data environments, understanding the overall toolset environment and not just data science itself. And that's one of the challenges with all of these roles. Is what Google's done is take a high level step to say, as a cloud architect, I don't just need to understand VMs and networking. I need to also understand to an extent how big data environments plug into my architecture. I've got to understand how DevOps environments plug in. The DevOps environments will say, how do I understand how DevOps translates to things like MLOps and all of those things? So it's quite a bit of, to go after everything it's a bold move, but also I think it should be relevant to the role you're trying to solve as well. I don't know if everyone else has any other thoughts.
And all right, thank you, Prin. I think the reason why I kind of went with that question was to lead me into one that was already asked before. Lodge, I said most people are reading to just pass the certification. What about making available opportunities to intern or do jobs and face the real challenge out there? And I feel like so far you've done a good job. Even Sizwe have done a good job in trying to answer that. But if there's any other thing you feel like you can add to that, because the question is just saying that some people just read to pass, but I don't think that's the case. It's hard. I can attest to that. Sizwe has told you his experience. Prin has confirmed it. So I'm sure if we bring in a lot more people that are certified, they will tell you it's not just about reading and passing. It's not the way it works. You just have to get the experience somehow, either by really doing the hands-on or
you will not pass by just reading. You definitely will not pass by just reading. There's a lot of it's very action focused. And that's actually what I love about this, because we need to act as a continent. We are at action time, and these are active certifications. What's also interesting about these certifications is that, say you write it this year, in 2 years you write the professional cloud architect this year. In 2 years, it's defunct. You have to write it again. And that's because the technology has also moved on. So the information that we are learning over here is a living creature unto itself. And we are subscribing to sort of move with this creature as we write these certifications. So it's just a whole world, guys, and it's not a small commitment to write one of these things and move with this world of cloud.
Yeah, and Sizwe, thank you for mentioning that. That kind of transitions into the next question. So I like how the flow is going already. Somebody asked, how long is the certificate valid for? So I'm sure you've already said it in a way, but just to confirm.
Yep, 2 years. 2 years, and
All
then you
right,
have
so
to rewrite
there
it
you go.
again, and the questions are going to be different. The technologies it's going to be talking about are going to be different. Google is learning. Google is innovating even as this is all happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Every day you log into that platform, you see a fancy new button you've never seen before, and you realize there's a whole course to that.
Not another one.
Yeah,
No,
and yeah. So if you, I think I like what the speakers have done already by kind of ingraining that in our minds as to what it means to the approach we need to take when you're looking at the certifications. And I mean, Sizwe said it's a living, breathing thing, which means it evolves over time. In the next 2 years, a few cloud services must have come out, and there's a need to kind of revise the curriculum and need for you to recertify or kind of revalidate your certification.
yeah.
So
from my side as well, I spent my previous role. I spent a couple of years actually training people on these certifications. So I was a Google Cloud trainer as well, and a lot of my class used to always come to me. Oh, is there a quick fix? Is there dumps? Is there something I can use? At the end of the day, it gets back to this. I told many of them, what I would do is do the coursework, follow it through, do the labs, but still take a few months and actually get practical experience. Because when you're starting solving problems that's not in a book or it's not on some site or anything, that's when you really engage with every area of the platform to understand how to troubleshoot, how to fix things. And that for me is really, for my students that got through this, passed it and smashed it, that was really the ones that did well were the ones that engaged with everything instead of just writing to pass.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, I'll end with this question before moving to the next slide. I said 3 before, but I felt like the how long is the certification valid for question was a quick one. So I think I'll use this next question. Jerry asked, or basically he's asking, that companies that need services of a cloud engineer require the applicants to have some professional experience. How can one get around this? So I'm not sure that it's more of a getting around it, rather it's more of how do you get the professional experience? But then again, I'll let the session speakers kind of go over this. Yep.
No, look, guys, you get $300 worth of cloud. Say you sign up to cloud with your Gmail, all right? You go to console.cloud.google.com, console.cloud.google.com, and you sign up. You at that point will get $300 in order to play around on the cloud. You must use this in order to bring things up that you can show to clients. I think if you are really serious about showing people that you are on this thing, and then use that as your CV, so to speak, where when they say what cloud experience do you have, you don't just speak to it. You say, let's pull up a computer, let me show you. And you log into your console, you show them things that are currently running there. And even though they give you $300, there's also the free tier. So one of the things that I generally do, guys, is I bring up apps that live in Google's free tier. These are apps that say you've got a Node Express app. You deploy it into App Engine, which is one of the services within Google Cloud. That code lives there for free until a certain amount of usage starts happening. So when say you're serving a website out of that, when people start using your website, only then do you ever start paying. And only and a significant number of users at that. So if you're only using it as something to show people that you work in the cloud, you can get away with that for free for indefinitely, because you're not being charged for you're only being charged for what you use, and they only start charging at a certain amount of usage. So I think you should use it like that.
All right. And also, just in case you're wondering, I know we're not wondering that, but it might have come across our minds when Sizwe said you get $300. That's in cloud credit. So so that you can use the cloud and test
No,
it.
they don't mail you. They don't mail you money or put it in your account. It's in cloud credit.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so can we go to the next slide, Eunice, so that all right. So this link, Eunice, probably can you just chip in to this link? What are we looking at?
Yes. So it's basically when we started the conversation with those who joined fast, I talked about this ongoing offer on Google Cloud certification. It's has 30 days access to quick labs and then 30% off on any cloud certification upon completion of the cloud engineering quest. So I am just going to repost it. This is for anybody who's interested in just getting certified and is really keen to going through the quick labs and just learning more. And also there's a 30% off. Who doesn't like offs? Like I don't know if it's just me. So yeah, I'm
We
just
love
posting
deals.
it on the chat section before we jump onto the slide with the Slido questions that came in. Great. So now before I switch off, I'm going to stop presenting and let's have a Twitter break. So I'm going to explain what Twitter break is. Wherever you are, I'm going to ask you to take a screenshot of whatever it is you can see. So each and every person, just take a screenshot and then tweet about it. And you can tag either me, Prin, or Sizwe and Mfawa. So just take a screenshot and do so. As we switch up, like 2 seconds to just loosen up on everything before we get into other questions.
Yeah, I
Prin,
agree. You can stand up
Sizwe,
now, just stretch,
and
take
you can
some
also
water,
Ugh.
retweet.
How do you take a screenshot?
yeah, just take a screenshot of whatever it is and you can tag.
Got it.
Okay. Sizwe, what's your Twitter handle? And Prin.
Unfortunately, I'm not on Twitter, but if anyone
it's-
does a LinkedIn break, I am on LinkedIn.
You're not on Twitter.
All right.
How do you know what's
Yeah,
happening
what
in
I
the
want to
world?
do is I want to create a GIF with all this. Oh. Okay, great. So 2 seconds. If you have not taken a screenshot, I believe everybody has. Again, I've posted the link to the certification offer. So let's switch to the questions that were asked earlier. Okay. Great.
All right.
So yeah, there's so many questions. I have no idea where we're going to start from. Okay.
Eunice,
start with this.
have you stopped streaming to YouTube?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not yet. We just want to capture most of it.
Okay, great. Oh,
All right.
and people who are referring to me as I know this is a bit confusing. I'm using Frank.
All right.
I'm using
So just
Frank
to clarify,
Tamri's account.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Eunice is using Frank Tamri's account. So whenever you see anything from Frank Tamri, just know it's from Eunice.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, Mfawa, over to you with the questions.
Okay, so feel free, guys, if you have a question, throw it out here. You have 2 experts in the house, so make sure you get all the squeeze out all the answers you can get from them. Ask away. I'm just going to switch to the meeting questions and probably try to go over them. All right, so someone asked, anonymous, of course, what are the chances to get a job in Google? Says in Google Cloud certification. I'm assuming he's about to say with Google Cloud certification. He's interested in learning it, and he's currently an active Java automation tester. So probably you can just recommend one of the paths for developers, right? Prin? Or
Definitely. I think it increases marketability significantly. I think it really rounds off candidates with a bit of exposure to beyond the core dev side. I think it gives you a good kind of badge of approval when you look at big enterprises, what they look for. I mean, big companies in one form or the other, whether it's banks, whether it's finance houses, they're moving to the cloud journey. So having that badge of approval on top of your kind of core skill set really makes you very marketable to both the Google partner ecosystem, as Sizwe mentioned, to companies themselves that are going to the cloud, And I mean, to Google itself, I mean, a lot of Google themselves look for architects out there. They look for data engineers out there that can bring value to their own organization.
And I think what's interesting is that, look, Amazon and Microsoft are very well known as cloud providers and all that type of stuff, but it's an unacknowledged fact that Google has the best cloud. And that the and this one is a known fact, the certifications in Google are the hardest. So if you've got a Google certification, you are just as likely to be hired by Amazon and all of the other cloud providers. But you didn't hear that from me.
It's only recorded and streamed as well.
Yeah, it's only recorded anyways. No one's gonna say it. All right, so yeah, but that's true because I think there was a question about. Okay, probably I'll just ask it, but I guess the answer is already out there. Somebody anonymous as well said the other two leading providers, Amazon and Microsoft, have made significant investments in cloud infrastructure in Africa. So his question now is Google the right choice? So probably a way to rephrase this is why do we think Google is the right choice? I know Sizwe, you've answered that, but Prin, do you?
Sure, not a problem. I think for us and from what we've seen in many cases where Google works extremely well is born in the cloud environments. When you look at things done ground up, new initiatives, starting out things, Google really gives you this amazing toolbox to just explode your ideas, your innovations. And it does things in a very, very simple, intuitive way. They platform through to their data, through to their fully managed services. It's just simple and it works, So in many ways, if you're looking to learn and skill up on a brand new provider without much traditional cloud experience, I think Google's an amazing start and it just makes things very easy. Where AWS and Microsoft come from is they're very plugged into very traditional legacy environments that require sort of vendor-specific approaches to things. So if you look at Microsoft, a lot of it is hinged on their traditional focus on the enterprise footprint, the Active Directory environments, their traditional SQL Server stack. So usually Microsoft is very focused on their traditional years and years of footprints that they have in big organizations. So where there's a strong Microsoft background and exposure for years and years of enterprise focus, that's where Azure tends to have quite a strong offering. AWS, in that regard, AWS is exploding. I mean, it is currently the biggest cloud provider. But once again, AWS is very specific in the tooling that sits underneath it is it's very bespoke. It's very clunky. It's very, if you someone that loves to play with nitty-gritty elements of build and nitty-gritty elements of putting together your networks, your infrastructure, your VPNs, it offers a bit more of that kind of dial level control into things. And a lot of people we find just don't want to deal with that level of configurability. They want something that's simple, that's easy, that's accessible and scalable. And in our experience, we found, Google in that regard just works beautifully. I mean, lastly, it's really that discussion of data center, which becomes less and less relevant in the modern world because we're seeing a global footprint of scalability that isn't usually, 1% of cases require that presence of a data center on continent or in country. But for 99% of cases, having your systems sitting internationally in UK, Europe, and the US works quite well. So those are sort of the three different approaches and why people consider it. But from our experience, I think it's an extremely market relevant set from a Google perspective to really choose Google as your cloud provider and to really upskill on the Google journey, just from being able to just get into the world as easily as possible of cloud.
Okay, so
wait.
Okay, go ahead, Sizwe.
If I may, Prin, I get so mad when people start talking about these data centers that Microsoft and Amazon have put up here in South Africa, and that is the significant investment that they've made. If we're going to talk about significant investments, we have to start talking about Equiano, which is a cable that Google is building that is going to come down coming down the west coast of Africa. It's going to land in Lagos and it's going to land in Cape Town. This is going to change the nature of internet for Africa. Like we are not properly connected as Africa. The other day, some sharks ate some undersea cables, and half of Africa didn't have internet. So we're obviously underserviced. Who's solving for that? Not Amazon, not Microsoft. Google is solving for that. They're investing 3.4 billion in this undersea cable, and I think, and that's not even just for cloud. That's for all of our internet. Anybody on their phone is going to benefit from this big investment in Africa. And further to that, I wish I had that picture up of what a Google data center looks like. A Google data center is about the size of 10 football fields, right? Like, no, not fields, 10 football stadiums, right? And it's an industrial complex unto itself. It's a very big investment. They were never going to put one in Africa without the connectivity first. And they're solving for that first. And that, for me, are people who are not playing marketing games where Amazon and Microsoft are putting up data centers that are not going to be connected to the rest of the world in any real significant way. And that's my view on that one. And I feel that genuinely Google is making investments that matter to us.
All right. Fortunately, we've run out of time. I think what we will do, or maybe I'll pick on your brain, Eunice. We have a few more questions, but what will be an avenue maybe we can share with the session speakers and they can answer their own time, probably just type away? Or do you think we have some minutes to?
Okay, I think it depends mostly on the attendees and the speakers. So, Prin, are you available for the next 15 minutes? Prin?
Unfortunately, I have to cut off in the next 5 minutes. I actually have a back-to-back. I can maybe take one question, and then if Sizwe can handle a few of the others, I think I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so what we will do is we will allow for the next 10 minutes. Of course, we will excuse you, Prin. When it's time, you can take one question, and then Sizwe can kind of take it home.
Perfect.
All right, that sounds like a plan. So there's a question from Eunice about the GADS program. Somebody's asking if they should sign up for it. I mean, if they should register. That's Chukwuemeka Uchenna. He said, "What's your advice for GADS students on the certification preparation? Do you advise GADS students to register for it?"
Okay, so the whatever it is I shared is open to anybody who's interested in taking a Google Cloud certification course. And so what this basically means is being a GAD student is not going to be a limitation. It's basically just another opportunity that you can actually explore, which I think is a good idea, considering now you say you're a GAD student. So for those who don't know, GADS is the Google Africa Developer Scholarship Program, and it seeks to provide hands-on skills to anybody in the cloud track, mobile web, or Android track. So yes, Chukwuemeka, you can actually register for it and give it a try. I always say you lose nothing by trying, but the thing is just ensure at least you're ready. And as Prin has talked about it, Sizwe has mentioned it, and Mfawa has mentioned it, it's a journey, and there's some specific steps that you're going to be taking when pursuing the certification. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Eunice. That was clear enough. This one, I guess we've touched on as well, but I'll just go ahead and say it. Somebody asked, Nwobodo Ikenna, he says, how possible is it to get intern placements for cloud? It is difficult to find any. All the jobs ads require lots of years of experience. So it might take, I think it depends on the job itself, the role. And of course, you know, I feel like most jobs kind of give you a blueprint as to how much you need to prepare or how much experience you need to get before trying to look into those jobs, because not all jobs are the same, not all roles or requirements are the same. But guys, what do you think? The question. Yeah, I think his concern is just okay. Go ahead.
From my side, I think just to build on what Sizwe said as well, I think the definition of experience is changing quite a bit, especially when you think of cloud. I think, I mean, from our side, I mean, we've seen some amazing candidates that have only had a varsity level of experience, but have built a lot of their projects and some of their fourth year engineering projects using cloud. That $300 credits go a long way, but being able to use some of those cloud-based environments, app engine environments, platform as a service environments, gives them some amazing experience into the same way we would do it in the enterprise world. So I think just being able to plug cloud into what you do in some form or the other really gives you that tick box around using the environment. I think whether you're a university student, whether you're currently working in some role with VMs, maybe just plug in cloud as a side, as a side initiative and start using some of those credits, use whatever, get involved in cloud initiatives, but do what you do anyway, but just do it on the cloud. I mean, for me, that's a different approach towards gaining experience that I think a lot of modern companies understand and appreciate when people have taken self-learning initiatives to go out there and do what they do best, but in a different way. I think that could be quite a different angle of looking at the formal experience, if you want to call it.
And I think to add to that, I think you need to start to take a show and tell approach to letting people know what you are capable of, and cloud is perfect for that, because CVs will say one thing, but when you got the guy there and you say, look at what I have done, and you bring up the console and then you click through to whatever page you built or whatever, that's a whole different message that will be much louder than what your CV says.
Actions speak louder than words, basically.
Definitely.
Okay, Prin.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I have one question to Prin before he leaves the call, and this is mostly because it's coming from startup founders or anybody who's thinking about starting a startup.
Sure.
So what advice would you give to any startup founder who's thinking of incorporating GCP in whatever it is that they do as a company?
Definitely. So firstly, and the obvious one is be born in the cloud, preferably GCP, but Sizwe will shout me if I say any other cloud. But it's always good to, but yeah, as a developer, as whatever role you're in as a startup, if you're building a data-driven company, if you're building a application, a mobile app, whatever it is, look for the simplest and easiest way to scale what you're doing. So if you are an app development company, look at how you can use things like Firebase, look at how you can use things like Google App Engine. Look for things that let you focus more on your code and not on a legacy traditional monolith approach to building things. So depending on what you're doing, I would say the advice around using cloud as a startup is think about how you can get over that scalability barrier and also focus on the user adoption journeys of getting people out there engaging with your platform. Don't worry about designing things in such a way that in 3 months' time, when it's popular, things break because of legacy ways of doing things. So as a startup founder, I think there's a lot of initiatives that's been done on the continent around getting support in the startup ecosystem. I know I've been working with a lot of Unison colleagues around things like the Google Startup Accelerator in Africa. There's initiatives that you can apply for. There's tons of support when it comes to credits. I know we keep throwing around the $300, but there's a lot more when it comes to supporting the ecosystem of startup cloud. And I mean, a lot of folks are focused on best practice ways to get the most out of cloud. It's about, as a developer, how do you think like a DevOps engineer? As a data scientist, how you think as a data engineer that can use fully managed services in the cloud. Another thing is don't reinvent wheels when things are being done for you in the cloud. If you're building an application that uses OCR to scan images or documents, don't build your own OCR system. Use something like Google Vision API. Use something like BigQuery when you're doing big data analytics. Don't go and build a traditional SQL Server enterprise warehouse. So focus on what's out there that's fully managed, that lets you get your MVP to the market as fast as possible. And we keep going back to that fail forward fast kind of approach of what you're doing, and reach out. The startup community is a very close-knit community of support when it comes to tech, when it comes to mentors, when it comes to all these things. And there's a lot of tools, support networks, and mentorship out there that can get you on the path towards getting your product, your idea, all of that out there. And I think Google in particular has taken a very startup-first approach to how their cloud is built and how their cloud scales. And I think there's a lot of amazing tools that were hinged on open source initiatives, open source tooling, open source environments that have now become very native to Google, and they give you that opportunity to just get your idea out there and scalable as fast as possible.
Okay, thank you so much, Prin. We'll have to let you go, but thank you so much for joining us. and
Not a problem.
if
If anyone does want to reach out to me, obviously feel free to share with all your questions with the team. I'm sure Eunice, you'll collaborate, but always more than happy to engage. If anybody wants to chat about something specific, always there. But yeah, appreciate everyone's time. And, thanks for having me on here as well.
All right.
you
Thank
soon,
you so much, Prin.
Let's do this
Have a
again.
good day. Yeah, that's a peace
Thanks,
sign
guys.
anyway,
Peace, everyone. Cheers.
All right.
Keep safe.
Yeah, let's keep safe.
you
Okay, so let's see. There are a few questions, but all right, let's see. Which one do we take now? Because we really don't have so much time anymore. But okay, can one do the professional cloud architect certification, or must one first do associate cloud engineer certification? Well, from my experience, start with the associate cloud engineer. It kind of becomes the building blocks for, jumping into the architect level of the certifications. I mean, I know Sizwe can shed more light on this, but yeah, the associate kind of makes you get in the door basically and know what to expect from the architect certification.
Yeah, there's nothing in the rules that say you can't go straight to any of those certifications. You can go straight into any of those certifications. We just recommend that you start with the associate because of the range of subjects that it covers that are the baseline for everything else.
All right. So you can start with whatever one you want to. I mean, it's how much effort you can put to it, I guess. So, but again, recommended start with the associate, then go to the architect level. All right. So I think we have space for one more, Eunice.
Yes, let's take one last question. I'm seeing a couple of them on the Slido.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, okay.
So-
Somebody's asking, is Google doing like Google Cloud Scholarship in plural site? I think Eunice, this is for you.
That is the cloud track. So you can when the rollout happened, you could have considered applying for that. But there is a cloud track for GCP. So yeah, there is, and I'm sure there are some learners who've also joined the call who are from the GADS program. Okay.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think this question I really like come and I just like let me ask it to Sizwe before we forget it. So Sizwe, for an aspiring cloud Google Cloud architect, kindly confirm that I don't have to meet any programming, and if I do, would it be a life-threatening situation?
Sizwe, it's all you.
No. I'm actually going to repeat the answer that I gave last time. That first of all, I'm pretty sure that developer role is under threat altogether because these drag and drop frameworks are going to replace our job. For instance, there's this thing called App Sheets that Google has purchased. They've purchased a company that created it and they've integrated it into their cloud offering. And with App Sheets, you just drag and drop to create new forms that people can capture things. If you want a maps component, you drag that in. Your data source can be Excel spreadsheets or it can be proper databases. The abstraction of what programmers do is really, really, really... and that's why I moved into cloud. I saw what was coming. I was like, no, I'm not going to be competing with those things. And in the world of cloud, I'm safe because it's a whole different skill set that's required. Yes, development is always going to be around, yes, but it isn't core to what cloud is about. What I believe cloud is about an interconnected world where the data that we are collecting as a people comes to life. And data analysis, machine learning, and AI is going to be central to that. And you can do all of that without writing a single line of code. Mostly it's about understanding data, how to get it from one source to another. And there's all of these amazing tools for that. Tools that allow you to identify personally identifiable information and say, no, redact all IDs and things like that, And there's no code involved. Then there's also the admin stuff around this. Sorry, somebody's got bad timing here. Don't call me. And then there's also the admin stuff around it, where there has to be somebody who's making sure that if a company has a cloud footprint, that their network and security and permissions are all well handled. Then there's also even the billing side of things. There needs to be a billing officer who's in charge of what budgets are allocated to which services. So the world of cloud is very, very big, and coding is actually a shrinking subset of it.
Okay, so and to touch on this as well, a key thing. We've all been developers. I mean, we all started as developers at some point, or we've had some sort of development experience. Some of us are just new. But one thing I think that is clear already is paramount is that the word developer and what we used to think developer means is changing. And if you think you're just a developer that just write codes and that's it, I mean, it's more than that now. And that's why, as a developer, development, it's a component, of course, of the cloud in a way. And like Sizwe said, is a subset now of what the cloud offers. So the cloud also kind of gives you exposure into all the available life cycle you could have from your application, in terms of deployment. You can have situations where one day your software, your application becomes so successful, and there is need to now start thinking about serving, say, 1 billion people. You would never know that until you kind of have that open mind and try to see what the cloud can offer. And I think I'll recommend some of us that have been asking questions if they have to be developers to go into cloud or that. There is no hard end law that says you must be one or the other, but again, just like everything in IT, I guess having an open mind towards learning and moving fast is key, for sure. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of this session. We will appreciate your feedback. I think Eunice have shared a link. Feel free, and I guess maybe Eunice, I'll let you actually close the session to tell us if there are other upcoming events and what we have in stock for the next sessions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mfawa, for moderating the session, and thank you so much, Sizwe, for the insights that you have provided on GCP and a lot of other things that personally now I'm considering. I think every time there's a webinar, I seem to think, okay, I should be an Android developer. Today I'm like, I should be a cloud engineer. I don't know what's going to happen next. If I'm going to jump into ML, I have no idea, but here I am now. Okay, so once again, thank you so much also everybody for joining. We are going to have 3 more webinars to follow this, and like I say, they're all going to be by Google developer experts for cloud, and then there will be a session with GDEs for machine learning. So it's going to be a very exciting next 3 weeks. If you had signed up the first time, you don't have to sign up again. So it's just a one-time sign up because you pick the sessions that you are interested in. This has been very informative. If you want to reach out to Mfawa, you can reach out to Mafi. Okay, Mfawa, can you say that, please?
All right, so MurphyCompo qm@gmail.com. That's my email. But then again, at MurphyCompo, basically, it's at my Twitter handle. So feel free, please, to reach out. I think I leave there sometimes. So.
Yeah, great. And Sizwe, if somebody wants to reach out to you,
I'm big on LinkedIn. That's where I'm like a bit of a celebrity there, But if Twitter's where you wanna catch me on Twitter, sir.
Okay, great. I think now you know where to catch Sizwe. Sizwe is big on LinkedIn. Goes by Sizwe Mabanga, so you can reach out to him there. If you have any questions concerning the next series that we're going to be having, feel free to reach out to me via Twitter or LinkedIn also. Twitter is at Denise Alela, and then LinkedIn is Eunice Alela. So feel free to reach out with questions. Thank you so much for joining, and stay safe and stay at home.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Stay safe.
Thanks, bye.
Eunice, I'm going to stop streaming to